The night sky over Gaza burned with orange streaks that cut through the darkness like blades of light. Sirens wailed in the distance, their echo carried by the Mediterranean wind as the earth trembled from the shockwaves of another explosion. In the dim corridors of Cairo's foreign ministry, the lights flickered once, then steadied, as diplomats crowded around a long oak table, faces drawn tight with disbelief. The news had just broken. An Israeli airstrike had leveled a compound on the outskirts of Rafah, killing several Hamas commanders and, reportedly, dozens of civilians who had sought refuge nearby. Within minutes, the region was on edge, and Egypt, forever balancing between its peace treaty with Israel and its sympathy for the Palestinian cause, was once again thrust into the center of a political storm. Outside, the streets of Cairo hummed with unrest. Copyright buzzed with tense conversations, the television screens replaying footage of smoke and rubble. The anchors' voices were grave, their tone sharpened by outrage and aggression beyond measure, one commentator declared, while another questioned how long Egypt could remain silent in the face of such destruction. In Giza, chants began to rise from small crowds, rippling through the alleys like sparks on dry tinder. The air carried the smell of dust and exhaust, the pulse of a city bracing for something larger than itself. Inside the ministry, Foreign Minister Karim El-Darwish pressed his palms against the table, his knuckles widening. He was an old hand in diplomacy, schooled in the delicate dance of regional politics. He had seen wars come and go, truces collapse, and peace talks falter under the weight of pride and vengeance. But this, he knew, was different. The Israeli strike was not just another retaliation, it was a message, one that threatened to unravel months of quiet mediation Egypt had painstakingly held together between Hamas, Israel, and Qatar. Around him, aides whispered updates, each report painting a darker picture than the last. The border at Rafah was in chaos, hospitals were overwhelmed. The Egyptian intelligence delegation stationed in Gaza had gone silent for nearly an hour. Every line on El-Darwish's face seemed to deepen as he listened. "Get me the president," he said finally, his voice low but unyielding. The room fell silent. A junior officer hurried out to make the call, and for a brief moment, only the hum of the air conditioner filled the space. On the wall, a large digital map flickered of Gaza, southern Israel, the scenario marked in red and yellow grids of military movement. The minister stared at it, then muttered under his breath, "We warned them this would happen." Across the border, Israeli military officials held their own meeting. The atmosphere colder, more clinical. The spokesperson rehearsed the line that would soon dominate headlines: a precision strike targeting a Hamas command center. Yet everyone in the room knew that civilian casualties would ignite fury across the Arab world. Within hours, Egypt's tone shifted. The foreign ministry issued a statement condemning what it called a grave violation of human rights and international law. It declared Egypt's full solidarity with the Palestinian people and demanded an immediate halt to what it described as indiscriminate aggression. The wording was stronger than usual, Western diplomats noticed, and so did the Israeli government. Egypt, it seemed, was drawing a line. By dawn, Cairo's skyline glowed a dull gold as the call to prayer rose through the morning haze. In his private residence, President Mahmoud el-Karim sat at his desk, staring at the statement he was expected to sign. His advisors stood nearby, each offering a different calculation. One urged restraint, warning that open confrontation with Israel could endanger the fragile peace accord that had secured Egypt billions in aid and relative stability. Another argued that silence would ignite outrage at home, where anger toward Israel already simmered dangerously close to boiling. The president said nothing for a long time. He knew the streets of Cairo better than anyone. He knew how quickly they could turn from restless to revolutionary. And he knew that for Egypt, defending Hamas was not about endorsing its ideology, it was about preserving credibility in the eyes of the Arab world. He picked up a pen, signed the statement, and handed it to his spokesman. "Make sure they hear it in Tel Aviv," he said quietly. Hours later, the statement dominated international headlines. "Egypt defends Hamas after Israel's strike." The phrase rippled through media channels, sparking both praise and condemnation. In Washington, the State Department issued a cautious note, urging all parties to exercise restraint. In Tel Aviv, Government officials called Egypt's reaction regrettable but expected. Inside Gaza, however, the message was received like a lifeline. For many, Egypt's words carried the weight of solidarity, a reminder that they were not alone in their suffering. On the streets of Rafah, amid the ruins of shattered homes, a man named Saeed searched for his daughter's doll in the debris. His hands trembled as he lifted a piece of concrete, dust coating his eyelashes. When he finally found the toy, its dress torn and face blackened by soot, he sank to his knees. Above him, the distant sound of fighter jets thundered again. Saeed whispered a prayer under his breath, his voice almost lost in the wind. He didn't care about politics, statements, or diplomacy. All he wanted was for the sky to stop falling. In Cairo, El Darwish watched the footage of Rafah in silence. His aides spoke about drafting a proposal for an emergency Arab League session, about rallying Jordan and Saudi Arabia behind Egypt's stance, about pushing for a UN resolution. But he knew what all of them meant, as the words of condemnation were just another chapter in a long, weary cycle. Still, he had to play his part. He leaned back in his chair, eyes heavy with fatigue, and said, "We will defend the principle, not just the people." One of his aides asked what he meant. He replied, "If the principle of justice dies, none of us will be safe." As the day unfolded, Cairo became a stage of both diplomacy and emotion. Protesters gathered outside the Israeli embassy, waving flags and chanting slogans. Riot police formed barriers, trying to keep order without sparking escalation. Inside television studios, analysts debated whether Egypt's defense of Hamas was strategic or symbolic. Some said it was a calculated move to restore Egypt's leadership in the Arab world. Others believed it was a genuine expression of outrage, a moral stand against what many saw as collective punishment. Meanwhile, foreign embassies scrambled to assess the mood. Western diplomats sent encrypted cables back to their capitals, warning that Egypt's shift could signal a new phase of regional polarization. As night fell again over the Middle East, the situation teetered between diplomacy and disaster. Israel, facing growing international criticism, signaled that it would not back down. Hamas vowed revenge, its spokesman praising Egypt's support as a brotherly stand. Egypt's intelligence channels worked through the night, trying to negotiate a temporary ceasefire, but each side wanted the other to move first. The air was thick with suspicion. Across Cairo's rooftops, satellite dishes glimmered under the moonlight, tuned to the latest updates from Gaza. In the ministry, El Darwish remained at his desk long after midnight, the weight of his country's position pressing on his chest. He thought of the border crossings, the hospitals, the civilians, and the endless spiral of retaliation that seemed impossible to escape. Somewhere deep inside, he wondered if his words at Egypt's defense of Hamas would bring peace closer or push it further away. By the early hours of morning, the city had quieted, though the tension hung like smoke that refused to clear. The headlines continued to flash across screens, journalists dissecting every nuance of Egypt's statement. Outside, the first call to prayer began again, soft and steady, a fragile rhythm of hope amid the noise of conflict. And in that sound, faint but enduring, Cairo held its breath, knowing that the next move by Israel, by Hamas, by Egypt itself could decide whether the region would edge towards reconciliation or slip once more into the familiar darkness of war.